Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Knock On, brought to you by our good friends at Zero Tackle. Dan, it's really good to see you, mate. Here we've got a big interview on the cards tonight.
Look, we certainly do, with a certain author of a certain book that may have released last week. Spoiler alert, pretty good. Really good.
If you do say so yourself here, Dan got the interview with a very, very special guest, and we can't wait to bring it to you this week.
Now, Terry, after a fantastic week of Rugby League, we picked out the three biggest talking points. Again, we're going to try and limit this because we could talk all night, because we love our Rugby League. But everything I've heard this week has been about those dastardly referees and officials, Terry. But you and I, instead of coming on here and complaining like the common man, we're here to fix the issue. Now, you floated something in previous episodes of our show, Rugby League Outlaws. Mate, how can we fix the bunker? Just fix it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that you could fix the bunker, but I think, having it centralized, it's literally called a bunker. Just have it at a central location. I know people are saying, "Oh, you need it at the game." What for? What do you need it at the game for? Like you and I are doing this podcast right now. There's a thing called the internet, Wi-Fi, all these different things, and people are going, "Oh, what about technology?" Okay, if the technology breaks down, what are they going to do? Are they going to run out of the bunker and run onto the field and whisper it in the referee's ear? Like, no, that's not what happens. You've got backup plans for this. So I think you need to centralize the bunker. And I really like the idea that you floated on Twitter this week about having one person do every game. Now, I'm not up for one person. I think it needs to be a majority rules. I think you need to have three people in that bunker. And it's just, you just go for it. It's 2 versus 1. Now, some of these decisions that, are coming back, like the Clint Gutherson, he didn't strip the ball, and then Clint Gutherson coming out saying my fingers are bent. That's a strip all day long. How did you get that wrong? How do you look at that and go, no, he didn't strip the ball, he's just trying to make an attempt to tackle? No, he wasn't. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he played a game. He took a gamble that you were going to get it wrong, and you got it wrong. And then your referee's boss comes out and says you got it wrong. What's the repercussions for that, by the way?
There are none. He's got another game this weekend.
Yeah. He didn't get dropped. He didn't get sacked. He didn't get stood down. Annesley didn't turn around and say, look, because that was so bad that we need to do more training. He just turned around and said, oh, well, I got it wrong. And the Dragons have now got to cop that on the chin like the Tigers had to last year, like every other team that's been done this year.
Completely fair, Terry.
I think three officials, and you can't, again, someone rebutted to you saying you can't have three officials do 3 games on a Saturday. Why? That's a day's work. I go to work for 9 hours a day. If someone offered me that on a Saturday, turned around and said you can go and watch footy for 6 hours, get paid for it, and make decisions on the fly, I do it at home. I yell at the TV on the couch.
You make the decisions, though. Mate, go back quickly before we move on to that idea I floated. You hit the nail on the head. It's, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, albeit a full day, and Sunday, a relatively large shift. That's 4 days. We all work 5 days. Now, of course, it's not just going to be sitting in the bunker. It's going to be extra stuff. But I dare you to come back to me and say that they can't do that in a 40-hour work week like everyone else does. Now, people were saying fatigue. We watch every game. I haven't missed a Rugby League game. I haven't missed an NRLW game. I watch Super League when I can because I love it. Find people that love it and can make good decisions. Now, another person was quick to say, oh, what if someone gets sick? That's why you've got 2 or 3 people. You pick the best one, you pick the second best, you pick the third. And if they also are the second or third best referee, too bad, you're the best bunker, that's your role. How many things do you have to do at work where people go, oh, Dan's good at this, but he's not good at this, and you do that because you do what's best for the role? It's so easy.
I don't want our referees in the bunker. I want independent people because the referees all make different decisions. Everyone has different interpretations. Like Todd Smith's interpretation of the game is going to be different to Ashley Klein's. They're going to be different to the Sutton brothers, who are going to be completely different to Chris Butler. They're going to be different to Adam G and Peter Goff. So I don't want them. I want you to go out and get, 6 people, and then the 3 best available, the ones who take to the training the best, they're the ones in the bunker for the weekend, and your 4th, 5th, and 6th people are on standby. And you're telling me that these just can't be paid people to go and do the job. People who understand rugby league, it's, just get them in.
Seems so simple, mate. But look, moving on. What isn't simple is the Brisbane Broncos' attempts to re-sign their superstar forward, Payne Haas. Now, just this week, it's come out again for the probably 50th time. He's not going to re-sign for Brisbane. He's going to test his market, blah, blah, blah. He's come out this week and said he's looking to Sonny Bill Williams for advice, which, is probably right up there in the terms of things you probably shouldn't say out loud when you talk about money, considering this. But anyways, we all know what Sonny Bill did. No, I love the bloke. But he's come out recently and said it's not about money, it's about winning titles. Brisbane sit equal first with Penrith and present the best chance outside Penrith to win a title, especially when you're looking at the next few years. Because, they're losing Herbie Farnworth. I know they're losing some players.
Well, it's not just Herbie Farnworth, is it?
Well, Flegler, potentially Haas.
Yeah, and they've lost another guy to the Gold Coast Titans. And a lot of their fringe players are signing elsewhere. So I think Haas may be looking at that this year's his best year with Brisbane, but where the next couple of years going to present the best opportunity for him to win premierships. Now, the answer to that is Penrith. The answer to that quickly is Penrith. I think if he's coming down to Sydney, he's solely doing it for a cash grab, because there are a lot of cashed up Sydney teams at the moment who are moving players on, moving pieces around to try and have a shot at a Tino or a Haas if they actually do come off contract. Or, Joe Tarpany gets his unrest again. Or Luke Thompson finds, form and doesn't get hurt. So I think if he's coming to Sydney, he may say that it's not about money, but it's about money. Every time he comes off contract at Brisbane, he always says, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. And then you see Payne Haas re-signs and gets his contract upgraded. Yeah, it's about money. Don't lie to anyone. Don't lie to us, Payne, and don't lie to yourself.
It's all good. Do what you do. Chase the bag. You only play for so long. Now, look, speaking of coming to an end of your career, a club legend of the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, may have played elsewhere, don't care. He's a Cronulla legend. In Wade Graham announced his retirement a couple of nights ago by the time this tracks. Now, obviously, we're big Sharks fans, so I want to preface that. But Wade Graham, mate, what's he standing in the game to you? And is it time?
It's time. And you can see that he sings ever since he did his ACL in the semi-final against the Roosters. He hasn't come back the same player. And, as someone who's had an ACL injury before, but I was a lot younger than Wade Graham when I did it, I know how hard it is to come back. I think he's standing in the game. He should be remembered as one of the best second rowers of the current era. At one point there, he was the best left edge second rower in the game. And I know Boyd Cordner was the state captain, but it doesn't matter. Wade Graham was better than him. He was the best kicking back row you've ever seen, and his defense was just devastating. He could, Cronulla could look to him to really change a game. And these days you turn around and go, what are your spine players going to do? How are they going to win you the game? No, Cronulla used to turn around and go, if Maloney's off, we're going to throw the ball to Wade Graham. So he is a legend of Cronulla. He's a legend of the game as well. He's won Origin Series. He's won premierships. He's won Four Nations tours, and he's won a World Cup. So not many players can have a resume like that. You never want them to come to an end, but he's the last standing survivor of the 2016 premiership winning team, and that just seems so long ago now. So, it was good that the club did a night for him. He gets to go out on his own terms, and he should be applauded. Never been in trouble off the field. Sans a little quote that gets thrown around every now and then about Asada. Role model of the game. Clean skin, absolute great player.
Absolutely great, Matt. I put a tweet out earlier, and usually people just argue because, it's out there. It's opinion. Someone's going to argue. Universally loved Wade Graham. Just a player on and off the field that you can look to. And, this is a bloke who was young and probably, made some silly decisions. Show me football. Show me anyone who hasn't. If this is a bloke who's learnt from those and now is a leader in the game. And, look, I think maybe he went a year too long, if I'm being totally brutally honest. But, he played his best game against South the other night for 2-3 years, which shows he's not done yet. And for him to go out, as you said, on your own terms, in front of everyone, like his loved ones, family, friends, it's what he deserves. Now, hopefully Cronulla can get into the finals and give him a home final would be a fitting farewell for Wade Graham. Because, as you said, this is the last remaining person, superstar of the 2016 era. You think back then, you think about culture-changing signings, though. Wade Graham and Luke Lewis are the two that stand out to me. And, I could talk for about Wade Graham for so long. Don't let the last year fool you. He has been under par. Father Time's undefeated, but if anyone was ever going to beat it, it's Wade Graham. So, mate, I'm happy that he chose to retire at Cronulla rather than go to Catalan. So I wouldn't have begrudged him by any stretch, but he's a Cronulla legend, and we can see him out. If not this Friday, in a couple of weeks against the Raiders.
Yeah, everyone said that, he should have taken that bag and gone overseas and gone into the Super League. No, you hear him talk about his studies that he's doing now. He's doing his coaching, and he joked about it and said, I wonder if Benji will take me under his wing. I hope not. I hope Cronulla have the foresight to take him under the wing because he's doing that coaching course now. You can't lose a player like Wade Graham around the club. Like, we've still got Gallen. You still see the photos of Luke Lewis down there every now and then. Mick Innes is on the coaching staff there as well. We can't afford to lose him 1 at Cronulla and 2 to the game, so I'm glad he's staying. Now, Dan, we spoke about it in the introduction, but you've landed a big interview this week, and you said about a book that was released last week, and that book is Jack Gibson's Fur Coat by Glen Humphries, and you got the opportunity to sit down one-on-one with Glen Humphries. What an opportunity that was. Tell me all about it before we get into the interview.
Mate, it was fantastic without any spoilers. Got a few laughs out of him. He got a few out of me too. This guy is charismatic. Plus, I'm really looking forward to this book. But look, if you could throw, mate, here we go.
Over to you, Dan.
Thanks so much, Terry. Now, I'm sitting here tonight joined by someone who's used to be on the other side of this. So we'll see how this goes. We got one journo over here and then me. But, mate, I'm joined now by the author of Jack Gibson's Fur Coat, Glen Humphries. Mate, thank you so much for coming on. Can you just start by letting us know a little bit about the book without giving too much away, what we can expect when we pick it up next week?
It's a book about, I guess, rugby league stories that have largely fallen through the cracks. While there are some obviously big ones like, I guess, Sattler's Jaw and the like, I still try and take a different slant with those. But a lot of the other ones, there'll be like drunk footballers. There'll be the first night footy game in the 1920s. There'll be, women's football being played for 100 years. Just a whole lot of stories that had sort of, like I said, has fallen through the cracks that people won't have heard about. I guess the aim for me was always, no matter how much of a fan you are, if there's at least one story there you've never heard about, my goal has been reached.
That's fantastic. Now, I'm a pretty big rugby league fan, as you can tell by behind me. This is pretty much all around my house, unashamedly. Jack Gibson's fur coat. What was it that was so iconic about that? For people like I'm in my 30s, mid 30s. We'll go with mid 30s. So younger viewers may not know who Jack Gibson is or the origin of the fur coat. What was it that's so iconic that was what was on the cover and in the title?
Well, I got the title. It's my brother I can give him credit for that. I was going to do a rugby league blog, needed a title, and he straight away suggested Jack Gibson's Fur Coat. And while the blog never actually happened, I just thought that title is too good to go to waste. I'm just going to put that in my back pocket and hopefully something will come up where I can use it somewhere. And it ended up being able to be used for this book. And I guess the idea behind it was, if you kind of understand the reference to Jack Gibson's Fur Coat, then this book is for you. You'll understand it's about the little stories about rugby league. It's not about the heroes or the big games or anything. It's about all the little quirky, unusual stories. And in terms of,
Sorry.
I was saying in terms of Gibson himself, that fur coat, it stems from the 1983 grand final when he's coaching Parramatta, and he's sitting in the stands with it on. He's getting photos taken with all sorts of dignitaries after the game, including Bob Hawke, Prime Minister at the time. And it just boggles your mind even now to look at that coat that someone would wear such a, I don't think outlandish is too strong a word to use in terms of the way it looks. But it just became this just thing of difference. And obviously Jack Gibson was, I guess, one of those rugby league characters who, could say all the quotable things and could even, would turn up on commentary after he'd retired and would actually be able to throw out, little deadpan one-liners that basically described everything quite succinctly.
Like, well, the one Cronulla fans are most, the monkey's off the back now, so I can say it in jest, but for a long time it stood over us that waiting for Cronulla to win a premiership was like waiting for Harold Holt to come back. I mean, Paul Gallen referenced it as the last thing in his speech. I mean, this is a bloke who, transcends. And for the younger viewers, as a coach, do you liken him to anyone today just so people can go back and look into it, or is he just one of a kind?
I think he's probably one of a kind. Probably the closest you could get, obviously, is Wayne Bennett in terms of success. But I guess really Gibson had success with a number of different clubs, even if they didn't win premierships. Like he brought, I think I'm a Dragons fan. I think it was in 71 he brought the Dragons into the grand final when no one else might have thought it would happen. I mean, it obviously didn't work his magic with Cronulla when he was over there for a while. Though I think I've heard stories that my uncle used to work with the Dragons and played for them back in the day. And I remember about this story. He told me when he was working with the Steelers, they went to Endeavour Field and they found out, they got into the stadium, the grandstand, into the locker room under the grandstand and found the walls had all been painted pink. And that was Jack Gibson's idea. It's one of those things he brought back from the US, that you paint the visitors' change room in soft, gentle colours to try and sort of psych them out before they even got on the field. And whether it works for everyone, I don't know, but it certainly worked that day because the Steelers didn't beat Cronulla.
I'll take it. Let's put fantastic. Sounds like we need all the help we could get back there, unfortunately. Without giving too much away, because, there might be another book. Hopefully there is. Any stories that almost made the cut but just missed out?
Not at this stage. It was a matter of I just started with, I knew there was a couple of stories I knew about. Like the one that everyone talks about was Bobby Lullum and his, what happened, him getting accidentally poisoned. I knew about that, knew about a few of the others. And so I just thought, if I need to find enough other stories and there might be a book, then I can sort of hang it all on. So I was just basically looking for enough stories to make that book. And then I'd sort of stopped at that point. But, certainly doing these interviews since, people have been saying, either you've forgotten this story or you didn't do that one, or what about that one? So there's already, I'm collecting stories in the background in case, if this book sells well, there might be a call for a sequel. So, stuff like one example would be, when Steve Roach was suspended for the grand final and he tried to do that, shonky thing of going over to England and play 3 games and serve his suspension over there and come back in time for the grand final. Those sort of stories that people probably forget, but then when you tell them about it, go, oh yeah, I sort of remember something about that happening. Yeah, so that may well be in the second book if it comes out.
That's crazy. We saw Ben Barber try that. So there's a story there. Plenty of other stories, I'm sure, from that Shark celebration. The one that stood out for me, though, Murder and the Mother-in-Law. Again, without giving too much away, because we want people to go out and buy the book to read it. Just give us a quick snapshot, please, because, a little bit.
I think it's one of those stories where people think football players sort of get up to sort of hijinks and stupid things, dangerous things these days, I don't think any of them have got a patch on Bobby Lullum in the late 50s, early 60s, where he didn't feel well after a game, sort of felt heavy in the legs. A day or so later, he collapses at work and goes home, and the doctors end up finding out that he's been poisoned with rat poison, which was a method in that era that a lot of people were using to get rid of those they didn't want around anymore, I guess, for various reasons. Women who found their partners were cheating on them, men who wanted to get rid of people they didn't like, that and all of that sort of thing. And then it sort of got worse because when they arrested the culprit, it turned out to be his mother-in-law. And then it got worse again because they found out that he and his mother-in-law were perhaps being a little bit more intimate than one would expect.
Mate, rugby league, huh? Rugby league. Were there any stories that have become rugby league folklore that you looked into and weren't true, or anything that people go, you remember when this happened, you're like, actually, it went this way, whether in the book or you've picked up along the way?
I guess one that sort of fits along those lines would be the John Sattler's jaw. I think, like a lot of people, I'd seen that, 5 or 6 second piece of colour footage where he gets whacked in the jaw with the elbow. But I'd never actually sat down and watched the whole game, so I didn't have that broader context of where it fit into the game. And so firstly, I was surprised watching that is that it literally comes out of the blue. When I was watching the game, I had to rewind it because I'd noticed the incident had happened before I realised, because I just sort of grown up expecting there had to be some biff or something beforehand to justify that level of brutality, but there wasn't. There was nothing that prompted it. It just comes, completely out of the blue. And something else I hadn't realised was that John Bucknell and John Sattler are opposing props. And this incident happens very early in the game. So that means every time a scrum happens, the attacker and the victim are facing off against each other, packing down face to face. And it probably doesn't work well for Bucknell, because every single time after that, Sattler takes it as a chance to, have a get square, put him in a headlock, drag him to the ground, or what have you. And so those were the sort of things that you hear the legend, the story of, he had a broken jaw and he played most of the game. It's absolutely true. But when you watch the whole game, you actually get a greater appreciation and a greater understanding of both what he did and what the whole narrative of it was. Like, I didn't know, for instance, either that Bucknell actually was the one that went off hurt in the second half, because not only was Sattler going after him, pretty much everyone in the South Sydney team was, putting him through a circus of pain, and he had to leave the field. And amazingly, he never got suspended for it either. You're off for a year if you do that today.
Oh, 100%. Like we've seen love taps that have got 4 weeks, like with the greatest respects, of course, but a different game. Now, mate, before I go, I just want to hit you a little bit of a pitch, please, because I think there's some stories out there. Everyone's got a camera now, and I think there's a second book in you. But if possible, I want to put some ideas to you for some titles, for some things that kids these days can look at and think, that's iconic, and will grab people's attention. So let me know what you think, because if these are good, we can talk after. If not, well, it's worth a shot. So first of all, I want to throw Nico's wet hair.
Yeah, it is an interesting hairstyle that he has. Yeah, I'm assuming he does, just pour the water bottle over his head before the game. Whether it's, he's seen a few old Bill Harrigan refereeing fixtures where he did the same thing with the same sort of hairstyle. Maybe it's for looks. Maybe there is some practicality in it. Maybe he just keeps it out of his hair so he doesn't have to, wear an Alice band or something like we see some soccer players wearing.
Very, very good point. I'll put that in the maybe pile. I got 2 more. A big standout for me, Chad Townsend's blown overlap. That's more an in-joke than anything, but that's all good. And, of course, Jared Croker's missed important conversion or penalty kick, which I think has taken over the rugby league world. Sorry for any Canberra fans watching on, but it's hilarious. But, mate, on a serious note, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I could honestly talk for another 20 minutes, half an hour. The book is out now. $29.99 Big W and all good bookstores. Please, if you're watching, go and grab it. Is it on the Kindle as well? I'm too old for that, but a lot of kids are watching.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I would assume so, yeah. Certainly available on Amazon. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, there you go. Get it on Amazon. Everyone's got a train ride in the morning. Good to read. Mate, is there anything else? Is there anywhere else we can catch stuff that you've produced in the past, or perhaps something into the future?
Well, this is the second book I've written for this publisher, Gelding Street. The first one came out around the same time last year, and that was called Biff, which was the stories behind sort of iconic rugby league fights. So that included everything from, the Battle of Brookvale in more recently to it was Lance Hohire and I want to say Robbie Flower in England, where it was a Challenge Cup final. He was lying on the ground, and just clocked him. And even, obviously to West's Manly, in 78. So, so there's about probably 20, 25 stories of Biff. So that one should still be available in bookstores as well. It'll probably be sitting right next to this one when you go into the bookstore.
Fantastic. All in one, mate. Thanks again so much for jumping on and having a chat and humouring me with a few laughs. It was
No problem.
an absolute pleasure. I look forward to reading the book. I might send it back to you to get a sneaky little signature, but, we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Always love signing my books. Always love it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Man, what an interview that was.
Mate,
I don't know who was the star of that, you or Glenn.
Hey, look, I'll take a 50-50, mate.
I'm really looking forward to reading the book now. Make sure you get out to all the retailers and grab it. So, yeah, Jack Gibson's fur coat.
Glen Humphries is $29.99 on sale now. Big W, I saw it today. I'm getting my copy autographed, so it'll be worth triple that. But, make sure you get out all good bookstores now. Now, Terry, I can see it in your eyes that, you're a happy man, generally, except when I mention one thing. Rugby League touch judges.
Yeah, Simbin this week.
It's your Simbin, mate. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to enjoy.
Simbin this week, the touch judges, right? Is there a more redundant job in the world than a rugby league touch judge? Now, I've asked this question before, and some people have, come back with some really handy calls saying, don't forget Ben Simmons wears a shooting sleeve. How redundant is that? These guys stand on the field. They have the view of the best game in the world. They have two jobs. One is to make sure that you aren't offside. Three jobs. The second one is to make sure you don't go into touch. And the third one is to rule on a forward pass. Now, some passes see a Sifa Talakai to Mawini Hiroti on the weekend. On camera angles, certain camera angles look like forward passes. And when you see them lined up and you actually see the player reaching back for the ball, but they've just overrun it, fair enough. But how? How Jack Whiten's pass in 2023 can still beat an official and two touch judges. And it was a borderline penalty. It was that forward. And the bloke was standing there, and I don't know the touch judge. I don't even know his name, but I understand that he's a touch judge on Cronulla's game on Friday night, so that'll be interesting. I hope we sign Tom Brady for a 10-day contract. But I don't know if he was scared to make the call because it was a crucial point in the game, or if he blinked and missed it. But it was bad. And it wasn't just – it was so bad that Graham Annesley actually had to come out and say, you know what, we got that wrong. Well, duh. Everyone knew you got that wrong. Everyone except that touch judge knew that you got it wrong. And again, what justice does that do for the West Tigers? You've again come out and said another officiating decision has cost you a game of rugby league. And now people are saying, well, why can't the bunker intervene on this? Okay, I get that. And they're saying, well, how far back do you go? No. If a forward pass is missed on tackle 3, but you score on tackle 5, you can't go back to that. But that play there, Jack Whiten literally threw the ball forward. Sebastian Kris picked it up and scored. Why can't the bunker intervene on that? And I know you're saying, camera angles and lines. You don't need a camera angle for that. You don't need a line for that. Like my blind dog saw how far forward that was. It was atrocious. It's a redundant job now. It could probably be done by a laser. Like ChatGPT is coming in here and taking over the AI world, and you can ask it questions. Let's just get some lasers on the field. Do it like the VAR. If the ball goes over the sideline, the ref's watch vibrates. Yep, you're in touch. If the ball gets thrown that far forward again, it vibrates. Hand the ball back over. That was shocking. And, an apology doesn't cut how bad that was. But something needs to change. This is the worst year of officiating. I said it last week. And it's funny how a week later, I'm sitting here saying, it didn't get better, it got worse. And that's the sim bin this week. All right, welcome to the set restart here, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about some things that have happened. I've already alluded to one of them, but I know you're itching for this one, Dan. So over to you. The first one, Graham Annesley, let it out.
These Monday morning or Monday midday briefings, whatever they may be, where Graham Annesley comes out and says, this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. These are the teams that were robbed points. Now, we'll see you next week. I'm here to argue, Terry, that they're more harmful than they are good. Now, I know I've been on about all week about them taking ownership of errors, and I don't believe publicly shaming referees is a good way to do it. I think it just gets you back up. You pull them into a video and say, you got this, and this wrong. You don't go out in front and say, oh, look, Tigers fans, you should have won, but, we'll learn from it, because they don't. It's proven that they don't. And then all the Tigers fans get on and blow up, as they should, because they've been told by the referee's boss that they would have won if this, and this didn't go against them. Now, it also makes the other team, you think, oh, geez, we got one there. Now, a win's a win, and I don't feel bad if we get a refereeing decision. At the time, you're like, oh, God, I'd prefer to win it. A couple of days later, who cares? It's 2 points in the bank. But him coming out and saying that, it gets both sets of fans upset. The referees go out there next week. Flips like you and I are going to sit there on Friday night and go, oh, you got that one wrong. Or, see you on Monday morning. What's the point of this? Other than to quell a few angry fans? If you're not going to fix it, don't worry about those angry fans. Just stop these cringe-worthy things. Because Graham Annesley comes out, and you got guys like Rugby League Mole, who, is a mate of ours, who says, oh, no, I think Annesley got it wrong. Okay, you can't do that because the referee's boss who adjudicates these is saying this was the decision that should have been made. So it just starts the debate again. It does nothing but negative. I don't know why they bother. And I think after the end of the season, it needs to stop.
Yeah, I hear you, but I do think sometimes when you get a really, really awful call, like the Tigers golden point last year, the Tigers penalty last year after the siren, I think the Clint Gutherson one, which was just really bad. And I'm just saying this because it comes to mind now, and that forward pass. Something needs to be done. Now, the NBA released what they call the 2-minute review at the end of every game. Now, whether it's a blowout or whether it's a tight game, they give you the 2-minute report, and they just give you every referee's call for the last 2 minutes. Now, basketball is a lot different because there's a lot of whistles and there's a lot of plays that happen and a lot gets reviewed in that game. But I think that something different from Graham Annesley in terms of just a paper report where it comes out and says on Friday night, these were all the calls. It was correct. It was incorrect. This call should have been made. This captain's challenge, although it was overturned, shouldn't have been overturned, right? So I think that would do more, that would be better off than him standing in front, reviewing a couple of decisions and then taking questions. Just give us a report on every game. Because there's not that many whistles in rugby league, unless you get that game at Shark Park where Matt Checkin blew 100 penalties and binned Cam Smith, and I'd love to read the report on that. So maybe just give us a report. The next one, Dan, we've got here, is Corey Horsburgh 2023's breakout star? I'll say no.
I'm going to say yes, mainly because I wrote this in the preamble. Sorry to burst the bubble, break the fourth wall. But this is a bloke who, prior to this season, and I say this with the greatest respect, was a meme footballer. This is a bloke that when a decision went, you went to the infamous photo of him flipping off the fans or him crying as he was sent to the sin bin or sent off, whatever it is. Now you look at Corey Horsburgh and he's big red. He's the superstar, lock forward, tear away middle forward who debuted for Queensland and he's talking about a $2.4 million extension, I believe, over 3 or 4 years. We're talking huge money, and money that if this time last year you said he'd be on, I would have called you crazy. This is a guy who is now a mean footballer for, oh my God, he's big red and we love him. I don't think anyone's ever turned their status in the game around so quickly as this bloke. I think he deserves everything he's got. I know there's some probably better players that you'll mention and put this to shame, but I love Big Red, and I just wanted to say it on camera, and he deserves every cent of that massive extension.
Well, after hearing that from you, I think it's really hard to turn that around. But I would say if we're talking about someone who's broken out and become an absolute superstar of the game this year, it's Patrick Carrigan. Now, I know you're going to turn around and go, oh, but he was the Origin Player of the Year last year. Yeah, but leading into Origin, people questioning whether he should have been selected or not. And he's taken that Origin form and he's become one of the premier middles of the game. I would lean with Pat Carrigan. I think there's some players that have have really, really announced themselves. Even a guy like Bradman Best, I know he hasn't done it all year, but he's now up there as one of the best centers in the game. Herbie Farmworth has probably taken over Joey Manu as the best center in the game at the moment, not named Stephen Crichton. I could also throw in a case for Wade Egan. But if you ask me who the breakout superstar, for mine, it's Patrick Carrigan. Now, Tallis Duncan has been linked with a sensational move to rugby union, much to yours and I's surprise. Look, I've seen him a couple of times play for South Sydney. He was sensational for them, gave them real impact off the bench against Cronulla on the weekend, and could have got them back into the game and won it with that breakaway, run that he made. For a player like him, so early in his career, it would be such a shame to lose him to an inferior sport. But what's your take on this?
Pretty much echo it, mate. This is a kid who it just screams superstar potential. Like, if South don't have him playing the rest of the season, then just give it up. Just say we don't understand rugby league, because he is a freak in the making. He's already got this cult status. Now, I know a lot of it is to do with his name. His name's Tallis, after the great Gordon Tallis. He was interviewed in the preseason cup. He's a likable guy. He's come through. He seems to be doing everything right. He comes on, busts Cronulla apart, almost steals the unwinnable game in Perth. On his fourth or fifth appearance, this kid is so – he's the kind of player we need to move heaven and earth for. Now, I don't know. It became a bit of a joke when the banker was running the game that we had this fund you keep players away from. Now, of course, he's not the kind of player you would break the bank to re-sign. But if you're Rugby Australia, and sorry if you are, they're just seeing themselves get blown out by the Kiwis once and a half, losing to the under-20 side. They're in a shambles. They need to go get some talent, and we're better than Rugby League, especially players that have a bit of rugby background growing up in, private schools in the East or whatever, don't want to bet the Eastern suburbs, private schools. Of course, he's one that they're going to come in and go, oh, let's get him out there. I couldn't think of a bigger waste of talent than taking a wide-running back rower who can play a bit of middle and putting him in scrums and resetting him 15 times. And I don't want to turn this into an anti-rugby thing, because that will be too easy and too fun, Terry. I'm above that. But honestly, these are the kinds of players that if South went to the NRL and said, oh, he wants 50 grand, we can't get it under the cap, the NRL should be able to see as a one-time thing, you can have it. I don't care if it opens a can of worms, because I don't want rugby union getting their grubby hands on one of our future superstars. If he needs to leave South, come to Cronulla.
Here's another idea for you, because we always talk about the war chest that the NRL gets and their $1 billion a year or whatever. They give you the salary cap, and I understand that the NRL pay for the salary caps of the clubs in full, but why not give everyone the salary cap, the same salary cap as they apparently do, unless you're East or the Bulldogs, and then give everyone an external cap as well, a soft cap, if you will. There's an extra $300,000 that can't go to a player in full, but unless that player comes to you and says, look, you've offered me $200,000, Rugby Union have now offered me $250,000, can you match this? You go to your soft cap, you take 50 grand out of it, you hand that over to the player as well, and if they come back and go, oh, my offer's now 300 grand, you asked me once, it's a one-off opportunity, should have told me to grab 100 grand out of that cap, I'll grab 50, that's all you've got. So I think there's other solutions to it other than going to the NRL. There's different ways. The NBA have it, the NFL have it. I think the A-League have a certain, marquee player caps as well. So they could look into doing something like that. But yeah, a young superstar in the making like Tallis Duncan, like imagine for us, that would be like losing T. Wilton to rugby union.
Terrible.
I'd absolutely hate it. Can't happen. Just lastly, Dan, Luke Thompson, Mitchell Pearce looking for lifelines in the NRL. Now, Mitchell Pearce has come out when Newcastle West and the Dogs were interested in him this year and said, no, I'm going to see out my contract at Catalans. There was the rumour that Matt Moylan was going to go there. Mitch Pearce actually spoke about that to the French media and said, a combination with myself and Matt would probably be really good over here. Then he's probably thought about it and said, if Moyes is actually coming here, probably need to get out of town. No, I'm kidding there. I'll call that smoke from his agent to try and get his last year at France bumped up. And there are reasons for that. The way that the French pay you, if you're a sports person, if you go, if Pearce signs an extension with the Catalans Dragons and then goes and plays a year at Warrington and then moves back to France, he will get the contract again for another 12 months that he was on at France, whether he's playing or not. That's just what the French government do for you. That's why you see a lot of football players, when they leave France, they'll go for a year in Turkey and then they'll come back to France afterwards because they get that final contract one more time. So I think that's just a smokescreen from his agent. The Luke Thompson one, look, Canterbury obviously don't have the money for him now, and it was widely thought that he was going to go back to the UK to Wigan, Leeds, or St Helens. Some cold feet on him because of his injury history, but I also think that for Luke Thompson, he's come out here with the hype. Like, he was the next Sam Burgess to come over here. And whilst he's had some fantastic games, he hasn't lived up to that promise. And I think that he would be looking for a cut price deal to just show that he has got it. And I really hope he's got it at Cronulla.
If you have a fully fit Luke Thompson, there's probably only 3 or 4 teams in the NRL that aren't in for him. This is a player of quality, and the games he has played, unfortunately, against us have been ridiculous. He's not the biggest bloke in the world, but he's not exactly small either. This is a guy who he's got it all. If you design a forward, it's Luke Thompson minus the 700 injuries. But unfortunately, I make jest, but those injuries come back when you think, okay, this is a player who's probably worth 600 grand on the open market, but you're probably only going to have him for half the time, which makes him worth 300 grand. And then you're thinking, yeah, but if he gets another injury on top of what he hasn't had yet, so you're looking about 200 grand. So this is a bloke who's going to really need to want it next year to stay here, because he could go back to England and probably make that or a little bit more with a side like Wigan or St Helens, or hopefully Wigan if it has to be, full disclosure. I'm a huge fan, and I'm on record as saying last year we should have gone and got him. Now I know he did his ACL or something. That's unlucky. The injury, he seems more unlucky than injury prone. And people are going to go, yeah, he's had 10 of them. They're all different. They're all, impact injury, stepped on the wrong way. I think there's a team here that's going to take him. They're going to take a punt. And hopefully it is Cronulla. I can't see a single team in the NRL going for Mitch Pearce. I mean, the Tigers, we make fun. You can't tell me he's not a better prospect than Jaden Sullivan, who they've just signed from the Dragons, a little brother, or the young kid they signed from Manly. Like, why would you put Mitch Pearce in and stunt their development for a season? He's not going to take you to a premiership. He wouldn't take the Panthers to a premiership.
They also got Aiden Caesar as well, the Tigers. So I think the door's well and truly closed on an NRL turn for Mitch Pearce. Like, you've just mentioned it. I know the Tigers are struggling at the moment, but they're not struggling in the halves for next year. The Dragons, I mean, him and Ben Hunt maybe could work. I don't think the Dogs need him because they would have got Toby Sexton, they got Carl Oluwapu, and you got Matt Burton if you're going to persist with him as well in the halves. The Dolphins, I got Sean O'Sullivan, and that's his team. The Roosters don't need him. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Manly don't need him.
No, he's not
I
coming
don't
back.
think there's not a top 8 team that needs him. The Titans, no, maybe. I mean, the Titans have got Tanner Boyd as their halfback. Maybe a 1 year. Mitch Pearce and Kieran Foran, what could go wrong? I don't see a way that Mitch Pearce is in the NRL next year unless he's a backup. But I'm hoping and praying that Luke Thompson is in the NRL next year just to show all that potential and talent that he does have. And as I've said, I'm quietly hoping it's a Cronulla.
Now, Terry, we're going to throw to the fans, the great fans on Instagram, Zero Tackle, again today. Our great producer off screen's thrown open the questions. We've got some questions, some hot takes, some opinions that people just want our thoughts on. And, no one can stop us. It's our show. So, mate, please, what have we been sent?
First one, I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm going to have a crack at it. Malachi Cridland. Sharks to turn it around after last week and Graham announcing his retirement. Look, if you want more on that, just quietly jump on Rugby League Outlaws, jump on the Fins Up podcast. We'll answer this for you right now, though. I don't think they're ever going to slide out of the top 8 just because we've got a couple of favourable games And I'm looking at last week as the 2 points we should have got from Manly instead of South. So somewhere along those lines, we're going to pick up those 2 points. I think our shot at the top 4 is gone unless we're perfect. And in an ideal world, we could go perfect, but I don't think we will. You're probably looking at 6th or 7th for the Sharkies, but look, a win's a win and it gives us confidence. And if anything, Wade Graham's retirement could spur him on.
I agree. I'd like to see us finish 6th if possible to get a home final to send out Wade Graham.
Well, we get one
win,
at
lose,
5th
or
as
draw.
well, Dan.
Sorry?
So we get a home final at 5th as well, Dan.
Yeah, true. Well, 5th or 6th, but I think 6 is far more achievable. Look, I can't see Cronulla winning the comp with Wade retiring or not, but it certainly won't help in terms of the motivation.
The next one from Cam Kennard at Cam Kennard 16. Ex-NRL players and coaches should be in the bunker to advise on calls such as high tackles and foul play. No, they shouldn't. No, absolutely not.
I disagree.
The players are your pundits right now. They're the ones who are commentating on the games. The ex-coaches are the ones commentating on the games. I'll give you the example. Tom Hazelton on Sunday night was knocked out cold, right? Had a big shiner on his face, and you had Brandy Alexander, who's an ex-player and a coach, on the call saying there was no contact to the head. These players have got CTE, or they're suffering from something, or they're suffering from that's my mate syndrome. No, absolutely not. No players, no coaches, independent people. Independent people, and not the officials either, because they're useless.
I was going to argue maybe you swayed me. I did like having Brent Sherwin there. I think if you have a player who can prove that they can do it, I think it would be a positive. But independent people, mate, you've solved the issue. No argument.
No players, no coaches, no officials, independent people. At Sam One's Bone, Warriors will make the grand final. Geez, I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, me too. Who wouldn't want a Warriors grand final?
A Penrith-Brisbane grand final would just be the worst thing that could ever happen to the NRL. A Penrith Warriors grand final would be really fun. Really, really fun, because if the Warriors start getting blown out, you know that genuine good guys like Adam Fanua-Blake, Mitch Brown, Dylan Walker aren't going to take that line down. But yeah, no, they're a lot of fun, and they're probably the most entertaining team in the competition, and the surprise packets. So why not? Can they beat Penrith though? No. Can they beat Brisbane? Yeah, probably.
Every story needs a good guy, Terry. Mm-hmm. And in this story, the good guys are the New Zealand Warriors. So I hope they're there. Can't see it if I'm being totally honest. I think they'll burn out in the finals. I think they might replicate Cronulla of last year. I think they've probably got a better squad overall to kick on next year, maybe. But look, yeah, sign me up.
And the final question from at the _barbecue_cowboy. Where could you see Eddie Blacker from the Panthers slotting into a run-on team? Look, short answer to that, I couldn't see him starting. I could see him making. Look, Eddie Blacker he's a good New South Wales Cup prop. He's one of the best New South Wales Cup props, and you saw Lindsay Smith, who was the best New South Wales Cup prop this year, has made it all the way to the Penrith interchange bench now. But someone like Eddie Blacker, he's been around for a while. He's been at St George. He's gone to Penrith, and he hasn't quite kicked on. You're probably looking at a team like the Tigers, but I don't think they need him. He could go back to St George. He's a big body, and the Dragons need forwards. I think he'd be wasted at Canterbury, maybe the Titans. But you're talking about interchange benches, and you're probably looking at the bottom 16. You know what? The Dolphins.
Right now, he would walk into the Manly start on pack.
Yeah, right now. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking for 2024 when everyone's fit, he might make their bench.
Yeah, I think there's a market for him, and I think these are the kinds of players that teams that aren't doing real well need to invest in, because you need these players that have been in good systems, that have the runs on the board, that aren't superstars and aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
You build around them and the Lindsay Smiths, etc., then you got money to go get superstars. So, mate, I'd be shocked if he doesn't find somewhere. If he's off contract, I don't know. In terms of starting, right now, he could make 2 or 3 sides at full strength. he's pushing for a bench spot. Watch his space, though.
Great questions, everyone. Sorry we didn't get to all of you, but keep them coming. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the second episode of The Knock On, brought to you by Zero Tackle. Don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere you can. They're massive. The content they put out is incredible. There's new articles up every day. They've got a stack of good people who write for them, and they've also got a guy named Dan Nichols who does as well. So make sure that you everything he does is quite a page turner. But Dan, what's coming out on Zero Tackle this week?
Well, look, spoiler alert, and Scott may be mad at me, but too bad, Scotty. I have written 5 potential landing spots for a certain Penrith half who may or may not test the market come November 1st. So during the live, so please keep an eye out for that. But look, anything that Dan Nichols writes, I've heard so much about him. But it's all good stuff. Scotty's been on fire this week. He's been on his high horse about refereeing decisions and his poor old Dragons, which I absolutely live for. But, mate, just before we go, again, thanks so much for everyone tuning in. And if you're listening to us, you're really missing out on 2 beautiful faces. But, look, I just want to throw a special thanks to Glen Humphries again, who has come on, dedicated his time. So on a press tour, and he made time for little old me, which makes the heart grow fonder. Thank you so much. Get out, buy the book, please. $30, it's Macca's meal for Uber Eats. And I don't need any more Macca's meals, so I'm going to get the book tomorrow. But look, mate, Terry, it's been a pleasure.
It has.
Keep
this
an
is
eye
The
out.
Knock On, and we'll see you next week.